with no complications, no issues, about a 70% effective rate. In fact, many
That's
of the
amazing.
individuals that we serve are usually calling from a parking lot of the abortion clinic or at home right after they've taken that very first pill.
Welcome to the Blind Mom Life Podcast. I'm your host, Chelsey Painter Davis, blind wife, mother, and pro-life Christian speaker. I want to invite you to dive deep with my special guests and I as we talk conquering disabilities, cherishing motherhood, and choosing life. Are you ready? Action. Another week, another movie, and we are talking a documentary. Yes, oh, I know, so intellectual. But Choosing Courage is not just an intellectual documentary. It is also inspiring in how it follows pro-life leaders in the 1980s forging the path for pregnancy resource centers in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. It is crazy, the footage that they have from the 1980s following these leaders as they are arrested, as they collect resources to stand for life, to support women, to support babies and families. And it is brave. It is moving. It makes me want to do more for children and women than I've been doing. It really stirs something in your heart to watch this story. And I'm so excited to have with us today Charles DiMarco from New Life Solutions that was birthed out of this leadership, out of the movement detailed in this documentary to stand alongside women 40 years later and be right on the leading edge of fighting for life. So without further ado, Charles DiMarco. All right, well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself for the audience and share with us how you got interested in pro-life issues?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you very much, Chelsey, for being on the
Yeah.
podcast today. I really appreciate it. Well, my name is Charles DiMarco. I have the privilege and really honor of serving as the president and CEO for New Life Solutions. We are a pro-life ministry based in the Tampa Bay area for nearly 40 years now. And it's interesting, too. I've been here for about 6 years. Prior to that, though, for about 20, 25 years, I was very much in the corporate for-profit environment. And then the Lord really called me to serve within this ministry. But I do see, too, as I reflect on all those 20 plus years in more of a corporate environment, all those skills and abilities and the educational background he's really used and prepared me for what I like to say, really, for such a time as this, especially right now. So I brought that all with me here at New Life Solutions.
So what helped you make that jump into New Life? What was the appeal and what is New Life all about?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was introduced to the pro-life movement through when I met my wife, and this is going back in 1996 when I met my wife, Cindy, and her parents. And they were very involved with New Life Solutions back in 96 and even before that. And that's when I started to go to the different events, participate in the walk, supporting the ministry, and really learning about the pro-life movement. And I always felt a calling that just to be open to however the Lord would call to serve in any capacity, especially having then a burden really for those most vulnerable. And certainly the unborn is the most vulnerable population. And it's interesting to note too. So the Lord really prepared me for this time, and then the opportunity arose in 2018 to serve here. But the interesting thing is, getting to know back in '96 and '97 and such, my in-laws, they were very involved in what was called back then the Pregnancy Center of Pinellas County, and that is what we now know as New Life Solutions. So in fact, my in-laws were very much in the kind of the pioneering grassroots stages of when New Life Solutions was just being formed in those
Oh,
mid to late
wow.
80s. My father served on the board of directors of that time. My father-in-law, that is, served on the board of directors. And so it's interesting now here, nearly 40 years later, I'm serving in this ministry that my in-laws back in the mid to late 80s were very active and involved in. But what New Life Solutions is too, and I'll just explain for your listeners too.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission is to protect the unborn, share the gospel, and transform our communities one life at a time. And we have a family of ministries that are focused on prevention, intervention, restoration, and transformation. And really, what I mean by that is on the prevention side, we have a whole ministry that goes into schools and talks to middle schoolers and high schoolers about healthy choices, curriculum such as social media safety, bullying, conflict resolution, drugs and alcohol, SRA, which is sexual risk avoidance. We've spoken to over 200,000 students just in the last
That's
20
amazing.
years. The intervention side is our 4 medical clinics in the Tampa Bay area. This would be our A Woman's Place medical clinic locations. That's what they're known as. And this is the array of free services, both medically, we're fully medical, and non-medical. So we do sonograms and STI testing and treatment, well woman care, counseling, material resources like diapers and wipes and clothing. And we help in a whole host of ways, both medically and non-medically. We serve thousands of individuals and have seen really over 11,000 babies saved from abortion
Oh my
through
goodness, that is so
this part.
many.
Yes, in the last 40 years. And then on the restoration side, that is our trauma side for those that have walked through the pain of an abortion, sexual trauma, patterns of behavior for both women and men. We have classes and curriculum to help those find that healing and restoration because really our past does not define our future, and our God is a God of complete and total restoration. And we're so thankful that we're able to provide this type of care and also licensed mental health counseling as well. And then finally,
Oh, that's
on that
awesome.
on that kind of that transformation side, we have a residential housing program for single moms and their kids, and an online university as well. But I'm really excited, Chelsey, because in 2023 alone, here's the impact that we had just in 2023. We saw 338 babies saved from abortion.
Wow.
We served over 6,300 students in our schools. We saw nearly 120 individuals walk through our counseling program, and we saw 170 professions of faith as we
Oh my
share
goodness.
with them. Yeah. So it's been a major impact significantly. And probably, I would say, in the 40 years, we have served nearly 400,000 individuals.
Wow, that is crazy. That's such a big impact you guys are making. So you guys have been New Life Solutions, even though it started out as a different name, has been a huge part of this movement for life for decades now. How did you guys adapt into this new phase with abortion pill reversal, and what really brought you to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is definitely picking up steam and growing rapidly here in the nation and in Florida. It really was wanting to make sure that we can address the needs and serve and come alongside individuals at their most desperate time of need. While chemical abortion, and this is the pill method, not a surgical procedure in a brick and mortar location, while that has been around a while, it's just in the last few years that it has grown exponentially. And as an example, just for context, in 2023, the Guttmacher Institute reported a little over 1 million abortions in the United States for the year. And now this is in a post Roe environment. That was the
Mhm.
highest number they have reported in a decade. And that is just based
Wow.
on facility based abortions that they're capturing. Now, bringing
Mhm.
it down to Florida specifically, in 2023, the Florida Department of Health reported a little over 84,000 abortions in Florida, the highest number reported in years. And again, this is in a post Roe environment and in a state that is wanting to move forward with some life affirming actions legislatively. So, all
Mhm.
that to say, we see abortion numbers growing, and at the same time, chemical abortion is growing. Nearly 60% of every abortion, both nationally and in Florida, is a chemical abortion. So now knowing that 60% of all of these abortions are a chemical abortion, and a very large group of that 60% are being ordered online without any control or
Mhm.
monitoring, it was so important for us to try to meet that need. So important for us to meet the need of the individual right where they are. And so now that was our goal. So we wanted to not just refer for things like abortion pill reversal, but be a prescriber of it, because what we have found out, we are busier than ever before over these last 6 months serving individuals, especially related to chemical abortion.
Wow. So you guys aren't just documenting this abortion pill reversal, you're actually a place that people could call to get help.
That is correct. Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Could you describe? I know a lot of even pro lifers don't understand what you mean when you say chemical abortion or abortion pill. Can you explain kind of the logistics of how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a chemical abortion, maybe sometimes referred to as a medication abortion or a medical abortion, is it's not a surgical procedure at a brick and mortar location. This is the pill method, and it's two different pills taking at two different times. And the first pill is mifepristone. Mifepristone will cut off the progesterone that the body is producing. It's essentially cutting off the nutrients of the child and will, in fact, end the life of the child. So the first pill taken, mifepristone, cuts off progesterone, ends the life of the child. On day 2 or 3, so within this little gap, day 2 or 3, the second pill is misoprostol, and this will put the woman into labor. So it's these two pills, and then this is why we're seeing heightened levels of trauma, because what's happening is this: individuals are alone in their bathroom, walking through their abortion experience. Um, in the course of 2 days, they're taking two sets of pills. One is cutting off progesterone, mifepristone. The other one is putting her into labor, misoprostol. And then they're walking through their abortion experience in their bathroom.
Wow. What stage in pregnancy is the chemical abortion pill used for?
Yeah, no, it's really a shame that it's used at all. But what
Hmm.
what what you're hearing, and what you're hearing the FDA, and this is also a big topic of news from just a couple of weeks ago with the U.S. Supreme Court having discussions about mifepristone. But what the FDA would say is 10 weeks would be the highest limit. It used to be 7. That's part of the challenge. Now they're saying
Hmm.
10. But here's the thing: many individuals are not sure how far along they are, and sometimes
Right.
it's been known some individuals may be aware, but are really, really wanting to move forward with that abortion anyway.
Oh my goodness. So on earlier in this podcast season, on our season 1 episode 3, we talked to a woman who had gotten pregnant at age 17, and she was explaining that she had plans to purchase the abortion pill, and she genuinely thought that she would just take one pill and start her period. Can you explain the side effects that actually happen when a woman takes those set of pills?
Yeah, there are a host of challenges and side effects with chemical abortion pills, both physically and emotionally. Now, of course, the abortion industry would say there's no challenges. In fact, there's even some websites that they are promoting that it's safer than taking a Tylenol, and that is very disingenuous and not accurate at all when you look at how
Hmm.
they're reporting that data. But here's what we know: there is significant hemorrhaging that takes place from a physical standpoint. There's significant hemorrhaging that takes place with a chemical abortion. And the Charlotte Lozier Institute has reported that 39% of second trimester abortions will wind up in the ER. In fact, there's a 53% greater risk of an ER visit for an abortion related reason when taking chemical abortion pills. So there's heightened level um, of challenges. Also, though, there's a couple other areas. If one has an ectopic pregnancy, which there's no signs or symptoms, you need a sonogram to properly diagnose this. With the amount and percentage we're seeing of chemical abortion right now, especially with many of these being ordered online, you are not meeting with a physician, you are not having a sonogram, and there is zero follow-up care, and that can be life-threatening. Additionally, if someone is anemic or if someone doesn't clot and you hemorrhage, that could be life-threatening as well.
Hmm.
If you have chlamydia, and we test for STIs and STDs, there's a 40% greater chance of an ER visit going through the process of a chemical abortion if you have chlamydia. And so these are
Oh,
just
wow.
documented pieces from a physical standpoint. But emotionally, what we see is this: we see heightened levels of sadness and grief. we see heightened levels of anger and rage. And the anger and rage is really aimed is because there's this now lack of reconciliation, if you will, in terms of um, the promise they received at the abortion clinic of what they could
Mhm.
experience versus their actual experience. It's very different in many cases, and it's causing a little bit of a disconnect there. Certainly there's heightened levels of like PTSD because of the fact that here the woman is alone in her restroom walking through this abortion experience, and then everything that it entails afterwards. And so it's
Mhm.
not uncommon for centers to get a phone call from the individual about what to do now while they're in their restroom regarding taking care of everything and cleaning everything. So now they're carrying this weight and they're walking through this experience. And so it's very challenging. In many cases, individuals who have walked through the pain and trauma of an abortion, and there is grace, there is healing, there is forgiveness, but for many, on average, 25 to 30 years, they carry that weight before they reach out for help. And many
Oh,
times
that's
there's
so long.
manifestation of things like how that manifests is this. It could be things like depression, divorce, fractured relationships, sadness, grief, anger, rage, things of that nature as well. When people carry that weight or they're silently struggling for so long. But there are some real ramifications associated with chemical abortion that even amplify some of the trauma that we're seeing.
Mhm.
So you're saying that people can order this abortion pill medication online. Do our minors have access to that?
Well, right now, Florida is a state where a minor is required to have at least one parent or the guardian provide consent before they can move forward with their abortion. However, again, there's many sites, at least a couple dozen sites, where one could just go and order from the privacy of their own home. And there's not any controls really at all. And again, because you're not meeting with an individual, you're not meeting face to face, there's zero follow-up care, and so minors do have access. Uh, and that is the challenge. In fact, the amendment that we'll be speaking about in a little bit too is going to actually want to do away with that parental consent or guardian consent before a minor has an abortion and just go to notification, meaning minors really will just have um, the ability at any time, which is really challenging, especially at that age. So they really do right now. They're not supposed to because parental
Mhm.
consent, but they do have access, especially because of the online availability.
Wow. So I feel like with the abortion pill mostly being for those first trimester abortions, it seems to me that that's when you're really trying to keep the abortion a secret. What can moms, just everyday moms, do to make sure that we're keeping our kids safe? Like, what do we need to know if we all of a sudden find out that our daughter's taken an abortion pill that we didn't even know about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a few things for sure. Um, Kind of like this, like be informed about what is happening in our state, in your particular county. Be educated really on these topics of what's happening and how it impacts you and your family and your children, and then really be involved as well. Look for ways to be involved because there's a good chance, given the statistic that 1 in 4 individuals have walked through that pain and trauma of an abortion, chances are at some point in time, we're going to have to want to come alongside and help individuals who are walking through some challenging circumstances. And so be aware of resources in your area. Be aware of pregnancy resource centers and medical clinics like ours in the area and others in really every area. There's going to be a pregnancy resource center that is going to provide care, compassion, going to provide hope and resources, because the goal is this, not yes, absolutely, to come alongside for protection for the unborn baby, but we want, when we talk about being pro-life or it's pro all life, we want to walk long term and provide care for the mom and the man and the individual family. So what parents can do is be involved, be informed, communicate with your children. And it's almost like, I think about it when, our children are younger and they're not even in this space or have a need, but you're building these bridges all the time so that when there is a need, they have a bridge to walk across versus waiting till a time of challenging scenario or a time of crisis, and then all of a sudden wanting to connect. So just be that safe place for your child to talk to, because you know who is wanting to be that safe place? That vacuum will be filled, and it's going to be filled by the abortion industry. They would like nothing more than to come alongside and pour resources into our youth, and they do that. They do that now. And so we want to be able to be there just to be informed, to communicate, to have those healthy relationships, to have that safe place and safe space, so that those individuals who are maybe walking through an unplanned pregnancy or have past experience of an abortion feel safe. Chelsey, it's interesting to note there's been some research done where the two places that people would like to feel safe when they talk about unplanned pregnancy or past experience and trauma with an abortion, home and church, typically come up on the bottom of where individuals do feel safe, because they don't feel, what they'll say is they'll feel like there's going to be some condemnation, some judging. And so we really need to flip that so individuals feel
Mm-hmm.
safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how does abortion pill reversal step in to this medication abortion situation?
Yeah, and this is a wonderful blessing to be able to provide this service, especially with the rapid growth of chemical abortion. Here's how this works. And again, for context, like we were just speaking about, that first pill that's taken is mifepristone, and that is cutting off progesterone, and that is going to end the life of the child. 2 days later, 36 hours, 2 days later, they're taking misoprostol, which will put her into labor. So you have a gap of time. So if someone connects with us after they've taken that first pill, which is mifepristone, cutting off progesterone, and before they've taken the second pill, misoprostol, if they connect with us, usually same day or within a day, day and a half, if they connect with us or other prescribers of the abortion pill reversal, we can prescribe that. And the abortion pill reversal it's just progesterone. It's not a synthetic drug or chemical. It literally is just progesterone. Progesterone was been cut off, and now we're just putting it back in. And the
Mm-hmm.
national statistic, as well as what we see, is about a 70% effective rate with no complications, no issues, about a 70% effective rate. In fact,
That
many
is
of the
amazing.
individuals that we serve are usually calling from a parking lot of the abortion clinic or at home right after they've taken that very first pill.
Wow.
Now,
That is
a
so
couple,
crazy. Go ahead.
oh, yeah, because if for those individuals that are listening, or for those that are maybe have a need or know someone that has a need, here's how people connect with us for the abortion pill reversal. Here's how this works. There is what is known as option line. An option line is this, and here's what typically happens on 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 your phone. An individual may search, "I've just started a chemical abortion. Can I reverse it? Or can I stop a chemical abortion? Or I started a chemical abortion. What can I do?" Well, the option line is going to come up first. An option line, the website is abortionpillreversal.com. And then the phone number is this, because I do want to give this out. It's 1
Mhm.
877 558 0333. 1-877-558-0333. When individuals call that number or go to that website, they're going to connect with a nurse. That nurse is going to connect with the closest pregnancy resource center and medical clinic near that person. They're going to connect with our medical team, and then our medical team will be speaking with them and be able to prescribe the abortion pill reversal, and either have them go directly to the pharmacy, or if they're in our location, we can provide that first dosage right there as well. And it's
That
just
is
progesterone.
that is awesome. How could you share a success story that you guys have seen personally with abortion pill reversal?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've served probably at least 20 individuals, and it's growing rapidly as we've walked into this year. But the first one I'll mention that I think about is just because it was the first I think about this. I'm going to go back to last year when an individual called us, just started the chemical abortion process, and called us in a state of confusion, anxiety, not knowing what to do. And our medical team poured into her with, again, compassion, resources, a solution, hope. We were able to, on that very same day, she started the chemical abortion process. We were able to connect with her and prescribe the abortion pill reversal. Again, progesterone. She started that um, protocol with us, and she would come back every week for a scan for a certain amount of time. And in September, this is going back to 2023,
Mhm.
her baby was born just fine, totally
Wow.
fine, no complications. And that was the very first baby that we saw out of our centers born through the abortion pill reversal protocol. And there have been many others since then as well. But that's just one example.
What an incredible moment for you guys to get to see such a success and such a saved life. That is so, I bet that's such a blessing to get to think about.
It it really is. It was a blessing for the individual, for our teams. She had called back the day that her child was born and communicated how thankful and grateful she was for us and the
Wow.
resource. And it was just a blessing to see the outcomes because they're not all like that. And I think about also the teams that pregnancy resource centers and medical clinics throughout the state and nation, they also walk through their own trauma as they are pouring into individuals while they're making their decisions. But this was a wonderful blessing as well.
Yeah. So, what can Floridians, you said education is important for parents before. What do Floridians need to be aware of right now as we deal with just this shaked up map post Roe of abortion? I know that a lot of people, even pro lifers, think, I thought Florida had a 6 week ban, but then I heard we didn't. I'm so confused. Can you help make that a little more clear for us and what we need to be informed about?
Sure, absolutely. Well, with the overturning of Roe, and which we do celebrate, absolutely. Individuals poured in decades and prayer and involvement, absolutely. It should never have been there in the first place. But in this post Roe environment, basically the United States looks like a checkerboard right now because you have different states with different life affirming legislation and laws in place. Um, in fact, Florida is surrounded by states that have more life affirming laws in place, which is one of the reasons why Florida saw the highest level of out of state abortion ever last year, with over 7,000 out of state abortions coming to Florida. So, what can we do as Floridians to be aware? To be aware and educated, and it's really that, it's to be involved and to be aware of what's taking place. And what I mean by that is this: over the last year, I've spoken to a lot of individuals who, and I understand, because if you're not immersed maybe in the space, some of the nuances and details could be missed. But sometimes the thought is, here we are, a couple years post Roe, we're in a state, Florida, that one would say is generally a pro-life state. And you can see pro-life legislation wanting to be passed, things of that nature. I've talked to a lot of individuals that think like, hey, all is good, everything's great in Florida, and things are probably great at your centers. And I can tell you, Chelsey, right now we are busier than we have ever been. The need for our services, and this is echoing through all centers and clinics throughout the state, busier than they've ever been because the need is growing. We shared data earlier in this discussion about how abortion rates are absolutely growing. So for individuals, it's to be involved, to be educated on the topics, to be aware, specifically with the 6 week threshold in Florida. And just for context, just to explain it and unpack it a little bit,
Hmm.
on April 1st, one of the decisions the Florida State Supreme Court did was they affirmed the 15-week challenge. And just to back up for a moment, in April of 2022, Governor DeSantis signed a bill into law that brought the abortion threshold in Florida from 24 weeks to 15 weeks. That was immediately challenged and started to work its way through the legislative process. In April of 23, Governor DeSantis signed a bill that would bring it from 15 weeks to 6 weeks. However, it could not go to 6 weeks yet until the 15-week challenge was was reached to conclusion. And so on April 1st of this year, here in 24, the Florida State Supreme Court affirmed the 15 weeks, meaning they denied the legal challenge that was brought forth. And that triggered the 6 week law to go into effect 30 days later. So beginning May 1st of 24, Florida will be at 6 weeks, the
That's
threshold.
incredible.
So it's been quite a process to get there. And so that is good. However, and this is part of that education, how people can be
Mhm.
involved. We saw this when it went from 24 to 15 weeks, and we're going to see it right now. We're starting to see it even right now, and it's going to be even more amplified beginning May 1. When this goes from 15 weeks to 6 weeks, and this is one of these little nuances to help educate individuals, the sense of urgency is going to grow dramatically. And what I mean by that is the decisions towards abortion are going to become much, much quicker. The amount of time that we have to reach individuals at their most desperate time of need is going to shorten. That window is going to tighten up. To reach them because decisions are being made so fast. So our goal is,
Mhm.
how can we reach those in desperate need? How can we reach that abortion-minded woman quicker than she could reach a chemical abortion? And she can reach a chemical abortion within 30 seconds online. And so we have to be laser focused in our strategy. And so that's part of this idea of being aware of the situation and the impact and the ramifications. It's this idea of what we like to say is this idea of being courageous in a moment of time when you hear such a different story from the media and the culture and society. But we're able to stand firm and be steadfast and courageous in this moment and just be informed of what's taking place and how we can be involved.
That is so awesome. So, what legal challenges or pushback do you expect to see in Florida after this 6 week ban on abortion goes into place May 1st?
Yeah, well, certainly the abortion industry is not happy with that. And you can see what they've done in 6 other states and many more in the works, but what's happening even right now in Florida. And this has to go with that other decision that was made on April 1st that the Florida State Supreme Court made. And it had to do with what is known as Amendment 4. And so the pushback is going to be this: the abortion industry is going to just want to circumvent any kind of state legislation, of course, and just work through constitutional amendments. And this is exactly what we're facing now here in Florida running up to November. And the amendment is basically going to allow for abortion up to term for any reason, really on demand. Now, they would probably say, they being the abortion industry, they would probably say, well, no, that doesn't do that. But I am sure the way they wrote that amendment, that language is very vague, very subjective, and very misleading, that it could allow a window of opportunity for it to be abused and taken advantage of. And what I mean by this is this, and I'll just read this just for
Mhm.
context for everyone.
Absolutely.
This is the amendment language that is going to be on the ballot in November. And it says this: no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. This amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to a parent or guardian before a minor has an abortion. Now, at a quick glance, a voter might read that and be like, "Oh, okay, all right." But here's why this is so dangerous and misleading and vague, because of the words that are used. As an example, before viability, I could talk to 10 different people right now and ask them to define what viability means, and I'll get 10 different answers. For some, it's 6 weeks, some 15, some 24. Some might say until the child is outside of the womb. So the fact that they're saying before viability, it's very subjective. Now, they also say patient's health. And certainly they would want you to think of the life endangerment of the mother. And just so we're all aware, in all 50 states, regardless of where states are landing on this, the life of the mother is number one priority and will always be protected. That is number one. So that is, every state has that. But they want you to read patient's health from a medical standpoint. But that could also be from a financial health standpoint, socioeconomic. And that's the number two reason why individuals say they want to move forward with an abortion. I can't afford it. So they could say, my financial health is not what it is. And that can be defined as a manner of health. And then also, too, when we read about this idea of as determined by the patient's healthcare provider, they want the individual who's voting to think doctor. But this could be the abortion doctor. This could be the abortion clinic staff. They have a vested interest to move forward with abortion. So that's why when you think of those terms, viability, patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider, on the surface, it may sound like we think we know what that is, but it's leaving it open to be really abused and misused because it's very vague and very subjective. And then that very last sentence, where they talked about required notification to a parent, that is eliminating the consent and going back to notification, meaning a parent or guardian would be notified of their minor child decision to move forward with an abortion. Not that we need your consent anymore. We're just going to let you know this is happening. Very dangerous. Dangerous, it's detrimental to, this is the opposite of healthcare. This is hurtful. This is the opposite of freedom. This is oppression. And this is the opposite of life. This is further creating a culture of death.
Wow. So this language in this amendment that's coming up in the Florida ballot in November, it sounds really similar to things that the abortion industry has been funding in other states that have been successful. How much of that is you think that pro-lifers are just not aware of the nuances and minutia of this legislation? And it seemed, especially in Ohio, as if some people might have been asleep at the wheel thinking that something like this could never be passed, and then all of a sudden it was.
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge to create this whole idea, especially in the state of Florida, um, of creating a communication a strategy just to let individuals know what this amendment really is communicating. Because we saw it in Ohio and Kansas. We see it in these states, especially Ohio, where they've lost. In fact, there's been 6 states that have had this type of an amendment on the ballot, and over 6. It has passed every time. 6-0. They
Wow.
they are. And Florida, though, is a supermajority, which is 60%. However, in a state like Ohio, although they were at 50%, I believe that final number of affirmation and approval of this was around 56%. So they were right there at that 60%. What it's going to take is really a collaborative and concerted effort from those who would like to see life embraced, um, communicate this message, whether it is our communities, our churches, us as medical clinics and pregnancy resource centers throughout the state. It really, and we always talk about, again, this idea of being courageous. It's about being courageous to be able to speak about it. Oftentimes I hear this too, Chelsey. I'll hear like, oh, well, you know what? You're talking about an amendment, you're talking about legislation, and you're talking about a ballot and a vote. This is political. I am not going to mention anything about this. This is political. And this is not political at all. This is about life. This is about the gospel message. This is about caring for women and men and caring for our communities. In fact, we sent out a press release just last week about this. I didn't use the word vote, election, ballot. I didn't mention political parties, nothing. I was talking about life, talking about coming alongside those most vulnerable, talking about caring for people who have walked through trauma. And this is exactly what we're called to do, for care for women and men and families, care for our communities. And when we see something that is going to do the opposite about that, that's where it's going to take courage to stand up and speak up about it and not be silent. If we are silent, we are going to see this further degradation of these types of things. And again, we know, and all this discussion proves this. This is a heart issue, a spiritual issue. No legislation or laws will fix the heart. We want to get to a point, in fact, where one day abortion is unthinkable. And until then, we can do what we can in our spheres of influence right now. Be educated, be informed, in addition to praying for groups, but partner with us and others in some capacity. That's what it will take.
Wow. What is the best way that a woman who's hurting and needs help, or someone who just wants to volunteer and provide support to New Life Solutions can get involved or find you?
Yeah, well, really appreciate that, because The number one thing is for individuals to know if they are either walking through an unplanned pregnancy or have a past experience in pain and trauma associated with an abortion, that there are resources available to help them, serve them, and walk with them through this journey. So that's number one. And again, we help with medical needs, non-medical needs, material resources, training classes, all free of charge. We charge for nothing. Everything we do is completely free. And we're here to support you, support an unborn child, yes, but to support you as well as you walk through this. And for individuals that have walked through the pain of an abortion, we're here for you to help you as you walk through that. So the overall message is you absolutely can be hopeful because we are here to help. And for those too, so for those that would want to reach us, I mean, certainly they can reach us for if you are walking through an unplanned pregnancy, if you have that past experience or trauma of an abortion, they can certainly find us at awomensplaceclinic.com. That's awomensplaceclinic.com. Or they can call us at 727-545-1234. That's 727-545-1234. Additionally, too, for those that are just interested in New Life Solutions, if you go to newlifesolutions.org, you'll learn about the totality of our ministry, whether you want to support what we do or just learn about the totality overall. And that's newlifesolutions.org. Because here's the thing, too, Chelsey, just as an encouragement, because we've talked about some heavy topics, maybe some things that sound like a headwind when we talked about data and chemical abortion and physical and emotional trauma. But I do want to encourage you with this. Whether you are currently supporting us, whether you are serving in another community, in another center, whether you've been praying just for this mission and ministry as we are standing up for life, I want you to be encouraged that we can move forward with courage and confidence because we are on the victorious side. And I just want to share a couple of verses that in the midst of the society, the culture, the media, the headwind, we can move forward with absolute confidence. We are on the victorious side. I love what we see in John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And take heart, that's take courage. Take courage, I have overcome the world. In 1 Corinthians 15, verses 57 and 58, we read, "But thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters, be firm, immovable, always excelling in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain." It may look dark right now, but our labor is not in vain. In Joshua 1:9, "Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." He is with us. He is our strength. He's our fortress. And then finally this, Galatians 6:9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." There's so much there. Being courageous, being firm, immovable, do not give up, and we will see the fruit. So is it, even as it looks right now, we can move forward with that type of courage and confidence in this space.
Thank you so much, Charles. It is such a privilege getting to talk to you.
Well, Chelsey, thank you. It's a real privilege to be on your podcast today. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for having me on, and just appreciate the work that you are doing in this space as well, very much.
Thank you. What does it mean to choose courage? Many of us might imagine an exciting, terrifying, thrilling adventure of running into a burning building to save an elderly woman, or standing tall in peaceful protest to injustice. But what about those quieter, softer moments when we turn to a friend and say, "I will be there for you, even if no one else will"? Or maybe we feel the urge to speak truth when we're surrounded by others shouting lies. I'm voting no on Amendment 4.
because I believe in women. I believe that women and babies and children can do much more than we might ever think. And I know that Floridians are stronger than abortion, and together we can do something beautiful when we stand for life.
Time for Ask Me Anything. So the first question I have for you today is, since you're blind, did you ever get a 3D printout ultrasound of your children while you were pregnant? And unfortunately, no, I didn't. When I was pregnant with my daughter in 2019, my husband called so many places in Oklahoma. He made a lot of contacts trying to find someone who would be able to do an ultrasound and get my daughter printed on a 3D printer like a little tiny baby figurine for me to hold and really feel her face, her toes, her tiny, tiny little fingers. And we couldn't find any place in Oklahoma that would do it. The best guess that we had is maybe there was someone in Texas and we could drive all the way down there, but we just reached the point where he tried so hard and it wasn't working. I just decided to let it go. And the same situation, or I believe the same situation applied when I was pregnant with my son in 2021 going into 2022. But maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should have made some more phone calls. But I was really intimidated by how expensive ultrasounds are, especially when you're getting one that's not covered by insurance at that point. And it really just shied me away from continuing to look for a 3D printout. But it was really hard to be a pregnant mom and not get to see the picture of my baby, especially when I had my son, because for those of you that don't know, my son received a prenatal diagnosis early as 12 weeks. They knew something was wrong based on the picture of his ultrasound. And it was really hard for me to hear all these doctors and specialists generating opinions about my son, about whether or not I should terminate him, solely based on this photograph of him that I couldn't even see. It made me really angry. It was really offensive that they were looking at this and seeing the worst in him, and me, who couldn't even see the photo, knew that it was a beautiful photo, and they just didn't see it that way. And it really hurt. It was really painful. But I held on to that photo. My lovely sister-in-law, Jordan, actually made a Christmas ornament out of it for us in those weeks where we didn't know if Dallas would live or die, because we were told he was so incredibly sick. And it was a beautiful thing for our family to take a photo together in front of the Christmas tree, holding out that ornament with his beautiful picture inside of it, just over my tummy. And that means a lot to me, but it was very painful that I couldn't actually see it. But even though I can't see my children, even though I can't see pictures of them, I know, and I knew then, that they are beautiful. They're beautiful inside my tummy and out, and I didn't need a picture to see that. The next question I have for you is, what is the most meaningful thing you can experience about your children if you can't see them? So that is definitely feeling their breath. I just absolutely loved holding my newborn fresh babies and feeling them breathe on my cheek, especially when they were asleep and they weren't screaming at me and crying. It was the sweetest thing ever to feel that little wisp of breath going in and out, just in such a soothing motion, and to just realize they're alive, they're here, they're with me. It is my favorite experience of my children, even now as they're older and they fall asleep and I can just feel that little wisp of breath going in and out of their nose or their mouth, and it is the sweetest thing ever. I still wish I could see them, but I love that feeling, and I don't know that there's much better than that.
If you want to see more content from me, you can follow me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, or you can check out my website, chelseapainterdavis.com. That is a great place to sign up for my newsletter or recommend a friend for the podcast. Do you know someone with an inspiring story? I would love to hear about it. Also, if you like what I do and you want to see me at one of your events, you can click on the Book Now tab of the website and submit a speaking request. I would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for hanging around through the end of the episode. I hope we have shown you today that all life is worth living. Just like in the book of Esther, where God paints a beautiful portrait from the background, God is painting a beautiful portrait with your life, and we can learn so much from each other if we share our stories. Whenever it feels like the darkness is pressing in, just remember the words of Jesus Christ in John chapter 9. As long as I am in the world, I am the light.
All right, am I recording?